Hi, welcome to Management Learning Meets, a series of short introductions to some of our most exciting papers and a chance to find out more from the researchers behind them.
The authors that we will be meeting today are Leah Tomkins, a senior lecturer in Organisation Studies at the Open University UK. Her research explores the experiences of work and the workplace through the prisms of phenomenology and hermeneutics. Currently, her research priorities include critical examinations of discourses of authenticity and care in organisations. And Edda Ulus, a lecturer in work and organisation at the University of Leicester in the UK. Her research interests include workplace emotions, introversion, and international collaborations. She is particularly interested in the application of psychoanalytic and post-colonial theories to work and learning experiences.
This paper is about the core question, what is being experienced in experiential learning? And it explores that both in relation to the students' experiences and in relation to the teachers' experiences. What is it that we are drawing on when we ask ourselves and our students to draw on their experience? So Edda and I were on the same teacher training course, and on that teacher training course, experiential learning was put forward as something very close to best practice for adult learning. So that was what we were spending a lot of time exploring. And both of us, in our own ways, in our research, explore the notion of experience, whether from a psychoanalytic or a phenomenological perspective. And we were increasingly questioning whether what we were being asked to teach under the rubric of experiential learning bore any resemblance to theories of experience that were guiding our research. So that's why we decided to look at the experiences of both teachers and students using experiential learning in a piece of empirical research. I think from a practical perspective, one of the useful things from this paper was to give some empirical grounding to the idea that experiential learning isn't a laissez-faire or non-interventionist approach to learning. And certainly some of the ways that it had been operationalised had led us and our students to think that it was, and that the more we got involved as teachers, the less experiential it was. So to be able to challenge some of that thinking, I found quite useful.
We found through doing this paper, there's a lot of research about the difficulties of learning, understandably so, the anxieties of it, the barriers of the learning process, but compared to that area of research, much less so about the actual joy of learning, the happiness that you experience as a teacher when you have such a phenomenal experience, the joy that students experience from learning. What I found that was one of the primary emotions, that they were happy with it, they learned, they felt challenged, they felt they expanded, they grew, they carried on talking about it after they left the university. So I think that we need to talk about these experiences of the joy of learning, and it's also interesting for me to connect this to a wider political context, at least in the UK, where there's such a push to think about students as consumers, and what are we going to lose by that? Because when we talk about students as consumers, we don't talk about learning. That gets shut out of the discourse. And then what are people losing if they're not having the joy in learning? So this opportunity to experience joy, to write about it and share it, I think, is one of the things that has stayed with me so strongly from this paper. And I think this is a conversation that we need to broaden, and that we need to take forward these discussions about happiness, elation, surprise, joy of learning.
I think the key thing that I'd like a reader to take away from this paper is the idea that it's okay to probe, and probe quite critically, what it is that we're being asked to teach, especially when it's topics or approaches with very high ideological appeal that everybody thinks are incredibly successful and popular. And experiential learning, there are certainly tremendous advocates of it, and in fact it's quite hard to argue against the notion of student-centred learning. But this paper for me really underscored the value of exploring these topics to see how far the way that they've been operationalised perhaps has taken us away from the theory that underpinned the topic or the approach in the first place. And it's okay to probe that, because every now and again perhaps the emperor hasn't got any clothes, and if we're being asked to teach things that we don't fully understand or perhaps don't fully endorse, then I think that does affect our credibility as teachers, but also our authenticity as scholars.
Mm-hmm.